it does a lot of things that are really helpful. And I use this in my class. I teach a class at Harvard titled Conflict, Justice, and Healing. And I used to teach classes on conflict and justice and never really focused too much on healing. And it's really a disservice. I think it leaves students and me rather depressed at the end of the semester. So integrating a process of greater healing or wholeness into the course was necessary for my own well-being, and I think for the well-being of students. And a resource like this offers a range of contemplative practices to connect more fully with our own experiences, but also these historic patterns that are uncomfortable and difficult for people to fully appreciate and fully bring into awareness without, sometimes feeling demotivated, like the pain centers of the brain are lighting up and the reward centers are shutting down. So how do we get more motivated and more inspired to grapple with the legacies of trauma and exclusion that I referred to earlier? This book offers, well, I'll read one question. So you walk through a process of reflecting back on your experiences. And when in your community did you feel, for example, like you belong? When did you feel like an outsider? What aspects of your life then and now were sustained by the suffering of others? And so that's just, very, very briefly, but there's a whole process of connecting with the history that you've experienced yourself and noticing something that perhaps you've been conditioned not to notice. And then connecting that with the educational journey into aspects of history that you may not have noticed, that you were encouraged not to notice, and working emotionally with that inner experience with a group of people who are also working through that and have had different experiences than you might have had is very powerful. And it requires an engagement with these difficult questions that requires a contemplative process to prepare us to engage with those questions and to feel comfortable with the uncomfortable emotions that come up. And so this is why Rhonda Magee says we need a vision not of restoration, but of real change. We need to understand why and how justice in action leads to healing and redemption. And unless we grapple with the deep historical roots of the adversity economy, the extractive system that has been co-created and sustained for so long, we're not going to win that battle for our imaginations. We're not going to be able to accept our own role. Well, I won't speak in overgeneralizations. It's more difficult to accept our own role in co-creating this extractive adversity economy, and then feeling motivated to want to work with others to make some really difficult changes that are necessary. So I would recommend the book and the practices within the book. I like books that have practices, not just sort of intellectual ideas, but embodied practices where we can experience in the safety of our own sort of private space or with a group of people who's on this same journey, experience the difficult emotions that come up for us and work with those and acknowledge the things that we are sort of conditioned not to acknowledge.